All right, everyone, got a video coming today that is really per your request. When I filmed the review on my Radian, which is actually AXTS, which is just an early edition Radian, but when I filmed a video on the Radian Model 1, the most common question I think I got was, how does it compare to Knight's Armament? And I was like, interesting, okay. And then I did a video on a Knight's Armament gun. This one, obviously they're different because that one's a 14.5 gun. This is an 11.5 inch SBR. But when I reviewed this, people were like, well, how does it compare to the Radian? And like, which one would you pick if you were picking between the two? And I thought, okay, interesting company. And given that I personally own one of each, I thought, okay, cool, I can do that. I can do a video on that. So this video is probably gonna be a bit different than normal, just because I'm gonna rely more on actual information because I'm responding to a specific request. So let's break this down. We're gonna track a little all over the place. So first things first, I have these guns built for very different purposes. So that Radian, that's an 11.5, and obviously, or sorry, I don't know if I just said 11.5, but 14.5. And it's got a 1:6 LPVO on it. So obviously that's meant to be a little bit more of a longer range gun. Like I don't even keep irons on that. And then that Knight's, that's an 11.5, and that's a red dot gun, right? So obviously this is gonna be more of a CQB oriented gun. And I've stated before and maintained to this date, that would still, if I was grabbing one gun and a shit hits the fan scenario, overwhelming odds are that would be it. Unless for some reason I happen to be in, Afghanistan or something, in which case I'd probably take an AK. But anyway, let's break these things down. Both of these are full ambi guns. So they both have an ambi receiver. So in the Knights, like I said, this is gonna be a little bit organic. Mag release that's where you would drop your mag. For me, it always felt a little close to the trigger. Obviously, if you're dropping your mag, you probably got an empty gun. I never quite loved that ambi mag release location. That's just my 2 cents. And then when you insert your new mag, that's where your bolt release is, right there, okay? Then on the Radian, I actually prefer, more intuitive to me, because it feels more like when you shoot handgun, if your finger's just gonna be on the frame, you would typically, instead of placing it right there, like on the CAC, you would kind of get high up and a little off, away from the trigger. So I'm a little partial to that mag release on the Radian. Also has a bigger paddle. So, we will see the paddle for your bolt release is gonna be bigger on the Radian than it is on the CAC. And then on the right side of the gun, you've got a bit bigger and more tactile. Yeah, just the controls in general are gonna be bigger on that Radian frame. So that for me is a point for Radian.
Hey, big boy, do you know what turns me on? A guy who owns a house. Do you know what turns me off? Having to smash in your mother's basement because she's a stupid hag that didn't want to give me a chance just because I didn't go to college.
Let's go ahead and wrap it up.
So anyway, call 1911 Syndicate if you want to buy a house. They breed excellence.
A couple other things. So if we look at trigger on both of these guys, I've actually really kind of come to a fairly strong opinion on this. I like the CAC trigger better, and that would come as a surprise to most people because that's just their standard trigger. That's not a Geisley or anything like that. Like, that's CAC's standard trigger, but I like it. It's very crisp, it's tactile, and I'm gonna try to do this so that you guys can hear it. So there's gonna be a little bit of take up, and then here's what I want you to listen for. Listen for the reset. It's a very distinct reset, and frankly, I really like that as compared to on the Radian. So this is an AR Gold trigger. It's It's a very nice trigger pull. The problem for me is in the reset. I bet you the mic doesn't even pick that up. So it's a really soft, really sloppy reset to me. And that, for me, honestly, is my biggest issue with this gun. The gun's phenomenal, and the trigger pull is fantastic. Like, if you're shooting just precision-oriented to the extent you are with an AR, that trigger would be money. If you're trying to, like, run and gun or shoot fast or do 3-gun or something like that, I'll be honest with you, I on the video that we put out of the LPVO of the Vortex, it actually drives me nuts. I didn't decide to kill it from the edit, but I just left it in because I didn't feel like dealing with it. But if you watch, I was just trying to shoot fast at the beginning of it, and you can tell I miss a couple of resets in there, right? I'm actually pointing out a flub that you guys can go watch if you go watch the Vortex video. It's like an inconsistent cadence. So for me, that trigger is not great if you are running and gunning or trying to shoot fast. Don't really love that trigger. So I give you a point to CAC on that. Cost. So the Radian is $100 more. That said, okay, so price advantage would go to the CAC. The problem is the Radian comes with everything I need. It comes with a Raptor charging handle, good safety, grip. I mean, it comes with everything. Like, there's nothing that I need to do on that. The CAC is a little bit of a different story. So even though it's $100 cheaper, here's the modifications that I made to this. Very, very basic stuff, but I had to pick a different brake because I wanted to run dead air cans across the board on my rifles, and it's gonna come with the CAC muzzle device, right? Which is cool if you wanna run a CAC cam, but if you don't, then hey, you're kind of screwed on that. So that's one thing I had to put on a brake versus on Radian, you can specify a couple different companies. I think it was like Silencer Co, Dead Air. I'm sure if you said, hey, can I send you a Surefire brake or something, they would do that as well. But that was one thing. I had to put on a different grip. I did not like the grip that came on the gun, so I had to throw on a different grip. It's $25, but still. The safety, if you're actually running the safety, the ambi portion of the safety on a Knight's gun, the right side of the gun, right? So for us lefties, where we would be taking that on and off, it sucks. Like, it's like almost like it, I had to take it off. Okay, it sucks. I'm not going to go into, it's just a weird design and I didn't like it at all. And then I had to throw in a Raptor charging handle because I needed again, I like to run as much stuff across the board in all my guns so that things are familiar. So I had to do that as well. So you're talking about, you know, roughly a couple $100. No, more than that. Shit, probably $300 worth of modifications that I had to do to this to get it to the point where the Radian was. So the CAC actually winds up being more expensive when I look at what I had to do to it. If you are looking at SBR lengths, so the Radian is only coming in a 10.5 versus the CAC only comes in an 11.5. And I'm not speaking on behalf of everyone, but definitely it seems to me to be the case that 11.5 is the preferred choice these days, and I hope that Radian's working on an 11.5 because it seems like all the data is now suggesting that, hey, 11.5 is the answer. So that is, for me, a pretty significant difference between the two, 10.5 versus 11.5, even though it's only 1 inch. Yeah, from my understanding, roughly, right, of the data behind it, 11.5 is going to be a lot more effective at the intended purposes for those shorter guns. Just another general point I would make, if I'm going, okay, what's my overall thought on comparing the two guns? The Radian's going to be a little bit more Gucci, and the Knights is going to be a little bit more workhorse. So if you just said, hey, look, I'm looking for a gun that just works. It's not like really high frills. It's not fancy. Like, it just works. It's got some real nice shit on it, but like, it just works. I think CAC's probably your leading contender for that. Radian's going to be a little bit more Gucci, and I don't mean that in any negative connotation. I just mean I think they're going to have a little bit more in the way of some higher end stuff in terms of what the gun also comes with. So I think Radian a bit more fancy, if you will, and Knight's a little bit more down and dirty workhorse oriented, almost like a BCM on steroids kind of thing would be about the best way I could put it. So let's look at a few more things on the Radian. No proprietary parts, and I think that that is huge. Okay, so there's no proprietary parts on this, and on the Knights, We've got a proprietary bolt. I don't think there's anything else on there that is unique to the gun. Again, my understanding is, yes, this Knight's gun will run with a standard bolt, but it is made to run with its Knight's bolt. But I think that's a point for Radian, just knowing there's no proprietary parts. The weight on the Radian is working against it. That's working in favor of the CAC for me. Now, granted, of course, this gun's heavier. It's 14.5 and it's got a heavy optic on it. But overall, just like, hey, you're dealing with like really, really solid components and all this stuff here. So you are gonna get a gun that just packs a little bit more weight on the Radian. So if weight's of significant importance to you, I would factor that in. Also on the Radian, there is, and I think this is pretty important, there is the option to order, let's say you were getting a 10.5, for example, there's the option to order it. Would you like that as a pistol or would you like that as a SBR? And on Knights, that's not the case, okay? They're 14.5 and 11.5 are NFA items only. If you want a non-NFA gun from Knights, again, unless I'm misunderstanding something, but this seems to be simple website-oriented stuff, is it a 16, like a legit 16-inch gun, 16-inch barrel, then with your muzzle device on top of that, that's your only way to get a gun from CAC right away without a tax stamp. So I think that Radian's got a huge leg up there, just knowing, hey, look, I could get a 10.5 Radian, I can get it as a pistol, I can SBR it down the road, I can do whatever I want. Or just get a 14.5 and it's a rifle versus an NFA item. You know what I think you tracked with me on that. So SBR versus pistol designation, I think, is a big point in favor of Radian. Superficial stuff, but color options, like you can pick your color on the Radian, which, you know, I mean, who doesn't like to pick their own color, you know? On CAC, it's like, hey, it's black or nothing, okay? No iron sights that are coming on the Radian. That's a point for CAC. Obviously, they are coming with their own Knight's Armament sights, which are very nice. I would think most people probably consider them to be the gold standard for Knight sights, or for iron sights, even though most of us don't even really use them. But there are no iron sights that are coming on the Radian. So again, that is one price point thing that you're gonna have to build into the Radian, assuming you want iron sights. Sub-MOA accuracy on the Radian, I'm only bringing that up because I didn't see CAC's designation in terms of what their rifle would do. I know that these things are very much built for as accurate as you can make AR, as you can make the AR platform. That's how accurate they're trying to get with this. Again, CAC might be equally as good. I just don't see the designation that they point out, so it's just noteworthy. You've got a direct impingement gun here. For those of you that care about that, doesn't really matter to me, but in case it's important. You can pick your muzzle device also on the Radian. We already talked about that. And then you've got a billet upper and lower receiver. And that's some of the points for the Radian. On the CAC side, we've got, again, comes with iron sights. We've got the proprietary parts thing, so factor that in. It comes with a designated muzzle device for their suppressors, so be aware of that. And I really think a big thing is, in order to get a, if you don't want to wait for a tax stamp for a Knight's Armament gun, you've got to get a legitimate 16-inch gun. And it's just like, man, I don't know why that has to be the case. It feels a little like we do that because we can. That's the best way I can describe it to you. Like, well, business is a booming, so why would we change anything? I get it. I just think it would be really cool if the civilian market could go to Knights and say, hey, look, just sell me a 14.5 gun that's not an NFA item, or be able to get this as a pistol. To me, it seems like they're missing out on a pretty substantial amount of business of people who go, I would love to have this. Please throw a pistol brace on it and I'll buy it right away because I don't want to deal with paying $200 for the tax stamp and yada, yada, yada. Which again, on the price thing, another point against Knights just being that, hey, you probably got an extra $200 that's gonna go out the door for a tax stamp unless you want a long ass 16-inch gun, which is probably not actually a long ass gun, but you know, for those of us who like the shorter stuff, 16-inch barrel is a long gun. So that's really the breakdown. I don't have a clear pick for you in terms of which one is better. I really think there's pros and cons of each. I like to take a position in videos just because I think it's it's what we all want. You know, everyone wants to know, hey, would LeBron or fucking Jordan win? And you go, I don't know, we can debate it, but it's fun when you actually take a position. So I would tell you, look, I said I want a dedicated, longer range, you know, recce-oriented AR, and that's what this Radian, it's what its intended purpose is. And then I wanted a dedicated short gun that's like, that's my grab and go, like shit hits the fan gun. So when people are like, which one is better? Hey, look, I have a platform for each of those two purposes that I would want an AR for, and both of them are pretty perfect in my mind. The biggest gripe on any of these guns that I could give you is that CAC is very limited in terms of pistol or NFA item, and then on Radian, I don't like that trigger for most of the stuff that I do, but that's also easy to replace. So take it for what it's worth. I think they're both phenomenal guns. You can't go wrong with either. They're going to cost you roughly the same. So if like round 7 of stimulus funds comes through and you're making even more money than you were before Corona, fuck it, man. Get a rifle. Or 2. Get 2 rifles, you know? Anyway. Now me and the dog will, he's very excited for pets, so we're going to hang out now. Goodbye, everyone.